The transport vessel Catherine floated through the endless darkness between stars. Its engines had died 3 cycles ago, and now the ship moved only because nothing in space ever truly stopped. Inside the damaged vessel, 47 souls waited for death to find them. Telos pressed his crystalline hand against the cold observation window and watched the distant stars. He was a Valorian, a being made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light when he was healthy. Now that light had grown dim. The air was running out, and his body was shutting down to conserve energy. Behind him, the other refugees huddled together in the main cargo hold, sharing warmth and what little hope remained. The Catherine had been carrying refugees from 3 different species when disaster struck. The Valorians, like Telos, were tall and elegant, their bodies formed from crystal that had evolved over millions of years. They valued logic and calculation above all things, and Telos had calculated their chances of survival at less than 2%. The numbers did not lie. They were going to die out here in the cold void between worlds. The Dreth were the second group aboard the ship. They were traders by nature, 4-armed beings covered in tough gray scales. Their leader was a merchant named Kavros, who had spent his entire life buying and selling goods across 100 different worlds. Now all his wealth meant nothing. Credits could not buy oxygen in the middle of empty space. Kavros sat in the corner of the cargo hold, recording farewell messages on a small device. He wanted someone to know how he had died, even if no one would ever hear his words. The third group were the Mirathi, small feathered creatures who stood only as tall as a human child. They were engineers and mechanics, known throughout the galaxy for their skill with machines. The youngest among them was Yenna, a female barely 20 cycles old who refused to accept that their story was ending here. While the others prepared for death, Yenna worked. She crawled through the narrow maintenance tubes of the Catherine, her small body perfect for reaching places that larger beings could not go. Her feathers were coated in grease and coolant, and her lungs burned from breathing recycled air that had grown stale and thin. But she kept working because stopping meant dying, and Yenna was not ready to die. The engine room was a disaster. The main reactor had suffered a catastrophic failure that had killed 4 of her fellow Mirathi instantly. The backup systems had tried to compensate, but they too had failed within hours. Now the ship ran on emergency power alone, and that power was fading fast. Life support would shut down completely within 2 more cycles. After that, the cold would take them. Yenna found a damaged power coupling and tried to repair it with trembling hands. If she could restore even partial power to the oxygen recyclers, she might buy them another day. Another day for someone to find them. Another day for a miracle to happen. But miracles did not happen in this part of the galaxy. Yenna knew that better than most. The Catherine had sent out distress signals from the moment the engine failed. Those signals traveled at the speed of light in all directions, crying out for help to anyone who might hear. 3 ships had heard. 3 ships had responded. And 3 ships had done nothing. The first was a Valorian science vessel. It had scanned the Catherine from a safe distance, calculated the cost of mounting a rescue operation, and then jumped away without a word. Saving 47 refugees would require resources that the science vessel could not spare. The math simply did not work out. The second was a Dreth trading convoy. Kavros had recognized the ship signatures and had begged them for help over the communication system. He had offered everything he owned. He had promised to work for free for the rest of his life. The convoy had listened to his pleas, demanded detailed information about what cargo the Catherine carried, and then left when they learned there was nothing valuable aboard. Refugees were not worth saving unless they had something to offer in return. The third ship had been the worst of all. It was a passenger liner filled with wealthy tourists traveling between resort worlds. The captain had actually responded to their distress call, had spoken with Telos directly, and had promised to send help. Then the captain had cut communications and the liner had vanished into hyperspace. Perhaps he had lied on purpose. Perhaps he had intended to help but then changed his mind. It did not matter. The result was the same. No one was coming to save them. Telos turned away from the observation window and walked slowly through the cargo hold. His people sat in meditation, their crystalline bodies dim and still. The Dreth had gathered in family groups, holding each other close. The Mirathi chirped softly to one another in their native language, sharing memories of home. A young Valorian named Cerise looked up at Telos as he passed. She was barely more than a child, only 50 cycles old. Her crystal form was almost entirely dark now. "Elder Telos," she whispered, "will it hurt? When the air runs out?" Telos knelt beside her and placed his hand on her shoulder. "No, little one. We will simply grow tired and fall asleep. There will be no pain." It was a lie. Suffocation was not peaceful. But Cerise did not need to know that. Let her face the end without fear. Kavros approached Telos after the elder had moved away from the child. The Dreth merchant looked exhausted, his scales dull and his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. "I have finished my recordings," he said. "I have told the story of what happened here. How we were abandoned. How no one cared enough to save us. Do you think anyone will ever hear them?" Telos asked. "Probably not. But I needed to do something. I could not simply sit and wait." Telos understood. Everyone dealt with death in their own way. Deep in the maintenance tubes, Yenna finally gave up on the power coupling. It was beyond repair. She had failed. She pressed her feathered face against the cold metal wall and allowed herself to cry, for the first time since the disaster began. Her small body shook with sobs that echoed through the empty corridors. When her tears were spent, she crawled back toward the cargo hold. She would spend her final hours with the others, sharing what warmth they had left. There was nothing more she could do. Then the ship shuddered. Yenna froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Had something broken? Were they about to lose pressure? She scrambled through the tubes as fast as her tired body could move, desperate to reach the cargo hold. When she emerged, she found the other refugees gathered at the observation window, their faces pressed against the glass. Telos stood at the front of the group, his crystalline body pulsing with light for the first time in days. "What is it?" Yenna asked, pushing through the crowd. "What has happened?" Telos pointed toward the stars. "Something is coming?" Yenna looked out into the darkness and saw it. A ship was emerging from hyperspace, its hull catching the light of distant suns. It was massive, larger than any vessel she had ever seen. Strange symbols were painted along its side in a language she did not recognize. The communication system crackled to life, and a voice spoke in a language that the translation software struggled to process. After a moment, the words became clear. "Unknown vessel, this is the USS Resolute of the United Earth Navy. We have detected your distress signal. Do you require assistance?" No one aboard the Kethran had ever heard of Earth. No one knew what a human was. But in that moment, none of that mattered. Someone had answered their call. Someone had come. Whether these strangers would help them or harm them remained to be seen. The ship that emerged from hyperspace was unlike anything the refugees had ever seen. Its hull was painted in shades of gray and white, angular and sharp like a blade designed to cut through the darkness of space itself. Weapons bristled along its sides, rows upon rows of cannons and missile tubes that made the Kethran's damaged sensors scream with warnings. This was not a cargo vessel or a passenger ship. This was a warship built for one purpose alone. Telos felt fear grip his crystalline heart. Perhaps these strangers had not come to save them. Perhaps they had come to destroy what remained of the Kethran and claim whatever valuables might be found among the wreckage. It would not be the first time such a thing had happened in this cruel galaxy. Cavros stepped back from the window, his forearms raised defensively. We should not respond to their message. They might be pirates or slavers. Better to remain silent and hope they leave. But Yenna had already moved to the communications panel. Her small feathered hands danced across the controls before anyone could stop her. "Yes, please, we need help," she transmitted. "Our life support is failing. We have 47 survivors aboard. Please, we are dying." Tellus grabbed her shoulder and pulled her away from the panel. "What have you done? We know nothing about these beings. They could be worse than the ones who ignored us." Yenna looked up at the Valorian elder with tired eyes. "What choice do we have? We die for certain if no one helps us. At least this way we have a chance." The communication system crackled again and the same voice returned. It was calm and clear, speaking slowly so the translation software could process each word. "Understood, Kethron. Hold your position. We are sending a shuttle to your vessel now. Prepare to receive our crew." The refugees watched through the observation window as a smaller craft detached from the massive warship and began moving toward them. It was sleek and fast, crossing the distance between the two vessels in mere minutes. The shuttle maneuvered alongside the Kethron with impressive precision and latched onto the emergency airlock with a soft thump that echoed through. The dying ship Telos gathered the refugees near the airlock, positioning himself at the front of the group. If these strangers meant them harm, he would face them first. He was old, and his life was nearly spent anyway. Let the young ones have a chance to run if things went wrong. The airlock hissed and groaned as pressure equalized between the two vessels. Then the inner door slid open, and the refugees got their first look at the beings called humans. They were surprisingly small. Telos had expected something more impressive based on the size of their warship. Instead, he saw soft-skinned bipeds with no natural armor, no claws, no visible weapons built into their bodies. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink, and their heads were covered in thin strands of material that the translator called hair. They wore matching uniforms of black and gray fabric, and their eyes moved quickly, taking in everything around them with sharp intelligence. The one in front was female, shorter than Telos by almost a full measure. Her hair was dark and cut close to her head, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. She stepped through the airlock without hesitation and surveyed the gathered refugees with a quick glance. "I am Commander Lisa Morgan of the USS Resolute," she said. "Who is in charge here?" Telos stepped forward. "I am Telos, Elder of the Valorian survivors. We are grateful that you responded to our signal, but we must ask what you want in return for your assistance." Lisa looked confused for a moment, as if the question made no sense to her. Then her expression softened and she shook her head. "We do not want anything. You needed help, so we came. That is all." Is all. More humans entered through the airlock, carrying cases of equipment and supplies. They moved with efficiency and purpose, spreading through the cargo hold and beginning to assess the condition of the refugees. One of them, a tall male with light brown skin and kind eyes, approached Telos directly. "I am Dr. Kevin Brooks," he said. "I need to examine your wounded. Can you show me who needs immediate medical attention?" Telos pointed toward a corner of the cargo hold where several injured refugees lay on makeshift beds. The Mirathi suffered the most casualties when our engine exploded. Several of them have burns and broken bones. And young Cerise, the Valorian child, has been struggling to breathe for the past cycle. Kevin nodded and moved immediately toward the wounded, his hands already pulling medical instruments from his bag. Other humans followed him, carrying stretchers and equipment that Telos did not recognize. Commander Elisa spoke into a small device attached to her wrist. "Doc is on scene. Hey, I need engineering teams ready to assess their ship. Let us see if we can get their systems back online. A voice responded through the device. Engineering teams are standing by, Commander. We will head over as soon as you give the word. Yenna approached one of the human engineers who was examining the Catherine's damaged power systems. I am an engineer, she said. I can show you what is broken. I have been trying to repair it for 3 cycles, but the damage is too severe for our tools. The human, a young male with red hair and freckles across his pale skin, smiled at her. Name is Pete Harris. Show me what you have got, and we will figure it out together. Yenna led Pete into the maintenance tubes. Her heart beating faster was something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope Dot in the cargo hold. Kavros watched the humans work with growing suspicion. He had lived too long and seen too much to believe that anyone did anything without expecting payment. These humans were helping now, yes, but there would be a price. There was always a price. He approached Commander Lisa, his forearms crossed over his chest in a gesture of challenge. What is your game, human? What do you truly want from us? Lisa turned to face him, her expression patient but firm. I have already told your elder. We want nothing. We received your distress signal and came to help. That is what we do. No one helps without expecting something in return, Kavros insisted. The galaxy does not work that way. Tell me the truth. Are you slavers? Do you plan to sell us? Perhaps you want our ship for salvage, and we are simply part of the cargo. Lisa studied the Dreth merchant for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle, but carried an edge of sadness. I am sorry that the galaxy has taught you to think that way. Where we come from, we believe that helping others is its own reward. We have a saying on Earth, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It means that we treat people the way we would want to be treated. Kavros stared at her, searching for the lie in her words. He could not find one. From the medical corner, Dr. Kevin called out to his commander. Lisa, several of these people are in critical condition. We need to get them back to the Resolute immediately. Our medical bay has better equipment to treat their injuries. Lisa nodded. Start transporting the critical cases. Everyone else, we will move once the shuttle can make a second trip. She turned to Telos. Elder, with your permission, we would like to bring your people aboard our ship. We have food, clean water, and medical facilities that can help your wounded recover. Telos looked at the humans who had invaded his dying vessel. They moved among the refugees with care, offering water and food, checking injuries, speaking softly to frightened children. Not one of them had demanded payment. Not one of them had asked what the refugees could offer in exchange. It made no sense. Everything Telos knew about the galaxy told him this was wrong, that there had to be a trick, a trap waiting to spring shut around them. But his people were dying, and these strange, soft-skinned beings were offering to save them. Yes, Telos said finally, we will come aboard your ship. And whatever debt we owe you for this kindness, I swear we will repay it. Lisa shook her head and placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm against his cool crystal skin. There is no debt, just people helping people. Now come on, let us get your people somewhere safe. For the first time in his long life, Telos did not know what to say. The interior of the USS Resolute was clean and bright, filled with lights that mimicked the warmth of a sun the refugees had never seen. Telos walked through the corridors with his people following close behind, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. The humans moved around them with easy confidence, nodding greetings as they passed, and offering directions when the refugees looked lost. They were taken to a large room that the humans called the mess hall. Long tables filled the space, and along one wall stood machines that dispensed food and drink at the touch of a button. The refugees gathered uncertainly near the entrance, unsure whether they were allowed to eat or whether this was another test. Human female with warm brown skin and a bright smile approached them. She wore a white uniform instead of the gray and black worn by the others, and she carried a small device that she used to scan each refugee as they entered. "I am Nurse Patricia Cole," she said. "Dr. Brooks asked me to make sure everyone gets something to eat. Please, sit down. The food processors have been programmed with nutritional profiles for each of your species. Just tell the machine what you are, and it will give you something safe to eat." The Marathi were the first to approach the machines, their natural curiosity overcoming their fear. Yenna pressed the buttons with trembling hands and watched in amazement as the device produced a bowl of grain paste that smelled exactly like the meals her mother used to make back on her homeworld. She took a bite and tears formed in her large round eyes. "It is perfect," she whispered. "How did they know?" One by one, the refugees approached the machines and received food suited to their biology. The Valorians were given mineral supplements suspended in liquid form. The Dreth received protein-rich meat substitutes that satisfied their carnivorous needs. Even the smallest details had been considered, from the temperature of the food to the size of the portions. Kavros ate in silence, his 4 hands working mechanically to bring food to his mouth. He still did not trust these humans, but he could not deny that they were treating his people well. Too well, perhaps. Kindness this complete had to come with strings attached. He was certain of it. While the refugees ate, Dr. Kevin worked in the medical bay with the most critically injured survivors. Young Cerise lay on a bed surrounded by machines that monitored her vital signs, her crystalline body connected to tubes that pumped nutrients directly into her system. The human doctor studied the readings on his screens with focused intensity, consulting with his medical staff in hushed voices. Telos stood nearby, watching over the child who had asked him if death would hurt. "Will she survive?" he asked. Kevin turned to face the Valorian elder. "Her body was shutting down from oxygen deprivation, but we caught her in time. The damage is not permanent. She will need rest and proper nutrition, but she should make a full recovery. You know how to treat Valorians? Our species is not common in this region of space." Kevin smiled slightly. "I spent the shuttle ride over here reading everything our database had about Valorian physiology. It is not much, but it was enough to develop a treatment plan. The rest I figured out through observation and a bit of educated guessing." Tellus stared at the human doctor. "You studied our biology in a matter of minutes just so you could help us? That is my job. I am a doctor. Helping people is what I do." In the engineering section of the Resolute, Yenna worked alongside Pete Harris and a team of human engineers. They had brought salvageable components from the Catherine and were working to repair them using human tools and human techniques. Yenna had never seen technology quite like what the humans possessed. Their machines were elegant in their simplicity, designed to be repaired and maintained rather than replaced when something broke. "Your people build things to last," Yenna observed as she watched Pete reassemble a power regulator. Pete laughed. "We have to. Earth went through some rough times before we figured out how to take care of ourselves. Resources were scarce for a long time. We learned to make things that could be fixed instead of thrown away." "What do you mean?" "Rough times?" Pete set down his tools and leaned against the workbench. "Humans have not always been good to each other. We fought wars, destroyed our environment, let people starve while others lived in luxury. For a long time, we were our own worst enemies. But we learned, we changed. It took centuries and a lot of suffering, but we finally figured out that taking care of each other was the only way forward." Yenna considered his words carefully. "And now you take care of strangers? People you have never met, from species you have never encountered. Why would that matter? Pain is pain. Hunger is hunger. Fear is fear. It does not matter what you look like or where you come from. If you need help and we can provide it, we will. That is just who we are." On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Lisa reviewed reports from her crew. The refugees were being fed and treated. The critical cases were stabilizing. Engineering. Teams were making progress on repairing what could be salvaged from the Catherine. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Daniel Carter, stood beside her station. He was a tall man with a shaved head and serious eyes that rarely showed emotion. "Commander, I have been analyzing the distress signal that led us here. The Catherine was broadcasting for 5 standard days before we arrived." Lisa frowned. 5 days? That is a long time to drift without anyone responding. Someone did respond. 3 vessels passed within rescue range during that time. All 3 scanned the Catherine and then jumped away without offering assistance. Lisa felt anger rise in her chest, hot and sharp. They just left them to die? It appears so. I checked the shipping records for this sector. The vessels that passed were a Valorian science ship, a Drath trading convoy, and a passenger liner registered to a resort company. None of them reported the distress signal or filed any rescue attempt documentation. Lisa clenched her jaw. 3 ships. 3 chances for someone to do the right thing. And they all chose to look the other way. Daniel nodded. The galaxy operates on a different set of values than we do, Commander. Helping others without profit is considered foolish. Wasting resources on strangers is seen as weakness. We knew this when we ventured out into space. Knowing it and seeing it are different things. Lisa stood and walked to the main view screen, staring out at the stars that surrounded them. How can a civilization advance to the point of interstellar travel and still not understand basic compassion? How can beings intelligent enough to build starships be so blind to the suffering of others? Daniel had no answer for her in the mess hall. Kavros finished his meal and approached Telos. The Valorian elder was sitting alone at a table, sipping the mineral solution the humans had provided. His crystalline body had regained some of its glow now that he was breathing clean air and receiving proper nutrients. "I have been thinking," Kavros said, sitting down across from him. "A dangerous activity for a Dreth," Telos replied with the faintest hint of humor. Kavros ignored the jab. "These humans confuse me. I have dealt with hundreds of species throughout my career. I know how beings think, what motivates them, what drives their actions. Profit, power, survival, pleasure. Every species I have encountered operates on these basic principles. But these humans seem different. Different how? They appear to genuinely care about our well-being, not because we can offer them something, but simply because we exist and we were suffering. I do not understand it. It goes against everything I know about how the universe works." Telos nodded slowly. "I have been thinking the same thing. When I asked their commander what she wanted in return for helping us, she seemed confused by the question, as if the idea of helping without payment was so natural to her that she could not comprehend why I would ask. It must be a trick," Kavros insisted. "Some long-term strategy we cannot see. Perhaps they are building goodwill so they can exploit us later." "Perhaps," Telos agreed. "Or perhaps the galaxy is larger than we imagined, and there are beings out there who have learned to live by different rules." Kavros shook his head. "That would mean everything I know is wrong. Everything I have built my life around. The universe does not give gifts. There is always a cost." Telos placed his crystalline hand on the Dreth merchant's arm. "Then let us wait and see what the cost is. Until then, I suggest we accept their kindness and allow ourselves to heal. We have been through much. Perhaps it is acceptable to simply be grateful for a while." Kavros wanted to argue, but he was too tired. Too tired to fight, too tired to scheme, too tired to do anything but accept the impossible truth that these strange beings called humans had saved them for no reason at all. The cost would come eventually. He was certain of it, but for now, he was alive. His people were alive. And that was enough. The alarm cut through the quiet of the ship like a blade, sharp and sudden and impossible to ignore. Red lights began flashing along the corridors of the Resolute as crew members rushed to their stations with practiced efficiency. In the mess hall, the refugees froze in terror. Their recent trauma still fresh enough to make every loud noise feel like the beginning of another disaster. Telos rose from his seat and grabbed the arm of a passing human crew member. "What is happening? Are we under attack?" The young man shook his head quickly. "Do not know yet, sir. Just get your people to the designated safe areas. Follow the green lights on the floor." The refugees gathered together and began moving through the corridors, following the glowing trail that led them deeper into the ship. Yenna fell in beside Telos, her feathers ruffled with anxiety. "I was in engineering when the alarm sounded." The human crew dropped everything and ran to their battle stations. They moved like they had done it 1,000 times before. "These humans are warriors," Telos observed. "Their ship is built for war. Whatever is coming, I believe they are prepared to face it." On the bridge, Commander Lisa stood at the center of the chaos with calm authority. Her crew moved around her in choreographed precision, each person focused on their assigned task. The main view screen showed 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace in attack formation, their hulls painted in blood red and black. "Korath Raiders," Lieutenant Daniel reported from his station. 3 vessels, medium cruiser class. They are armed with plasma cannons and torpedo launchers. Their shields are at full power. Lisa felt her jaw tighten. The Korath were slavers, the worst kind of predators the galaxy had to offer. They hunted the weak and the helpless, capturing them and selling them to the highest bidder. Refugees were their favorite targets because no one would come looking for them. "Hail them," Lisa ordered. The communications officer opened a channel, and moments later the face of a Korath commander appeared on screen. He was reptilian in appearance, with dark scales and yellow eyes that gleamed with cruel intelligence. His mouth was filled with sharp teeth that he bared in what might have been a smile. "Human vessel," the Korath said, "you have taken something that belongs to us." The refugees aboard that transport were marked for collection. "Surrender them immediately, and we will allow you to leave this sector alive." Lisa stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back. "Those people are under our protection. They are not property to be collected. They are living beings who will remain safely aboard our ship." The Korath commander laughed, a harsh sound that grated against the ears. "Protection? You are 1 ship against 3. Your weapons are impressive. I will grant you that, but you cannot fight us all. Do the math, human. The logical choice is surrender." "I did the math," Lisa replied. "It told me that 47 innocent people would be enslaved if I did nothing. That is not acceptable mathematics." "Then you will die with them. Their suffering will be legendary, and it will be your fault for forcing our hand." Lisa smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "You talk too much. This conversation is over." She cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. "Amy, status on targeting solutions?" Amy Sullivan worked her console with rapid keystrokes. "I am firing solutions on all 3 vessels, Commander. Their shields are strong, but they have gaps in their armor plating near the engine sections. If we focus our fire there, we can cripple them quickly." "Do it. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." The Resolute surged forward, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the enemy formation. The Korath ships responded instantly, breaking apart to approach from multiple angles. Plasma bolts filled the space between them, streaking through the void like deadly stars. The first volley struck the Resolute's shields, causing the ship to shudder beneath the impact. Lisa grabbed a support rail to steady herself, but never took her eyes off the view screen. "Return fire. Target the lead vessel." The Resolute's weapons spoke in response, railguns and missile batteries, unleashing a coordinated barrage that slammed into the lead Korath ship. The enemy shields flickered and sparked under the assault, struggling to absorb the concentrated firepower in the safe room deep within the ship. The refugees huddled together as they listened to the sounds of battle. The Resolute shook and groaned around them, metal stressed by impacts and sudden maneuvers. Children cried, and adults held them close, whispering words of comfort they did not truly believe. Kavros paced back and forth, his forearms wrapped around his body. They are fighting. They are actually fighting for us. Against 3 warships. This is madness. Yenna sat with the other Merathi, her small body trembling with each vibration that passed through the deck. They said they would protect us. They are keeping their word. No one keeps their word when it costs them their lives. Kavros snapped. No one is that foolish. Telos stood near the door of the safe room, his crystalline body glowing with agitation. Perhaps the humans are not foolish. Perhaps they simply believe that some things are worth dying for. On the bridge, the battle raged with terrifying intensity. The Korath were skilled fighters, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm the Resolute's defenses. Warning lights flashed across multiple stations as damage reports flooded in from all sections of the ship. Hull breach on Deck 7, Daniel announced. Emergency force fields are holding. We have casualties in forward weapons control. Lisa absorbed the information without hesitation. Redirect power from non-essential systems to shields. Tell medical to prepare for incoming wounded. The lead Korath ship made a fatal mistake, turning slightly to bring its heavier weapons to bear on the Resolute. In doing so, it exposed the engine section that Amy had identified earlier. Lisa saw the opening and did not hesitate. Amy now. Everything we have on that weak point. The Resolute fired every weapon that could target the exposed section. Railgun rounds punched through weakened armor while missiles detonated against the enemy hull. The Korath ship's engines exploded in a brilliant flash of light, and the vessel began to drift, dead and powerless. One down, Amy reported, her voice tight with focus. The 2 remaining Korath ships broke off their attack run and began to circle, reassessing their prey. The Resolute was more dangerous than they had expected. This human ship and its soft-skinned crew were not the easy target the Korath had assumed. The Korath commander's face appeared on screen again, his expression twisted with rage. You will suffer for this, human. Every one of those refugees will be made to pay for what you have done today. Lisa did not respond with words. Instead, she gestured to her communications officer, who cut the transmission once more. Danny, bring us around for another pass. Amy, target the second vessel. Same strategy, hit them where they are weak. The Resolute maneuvered through the chaos of battle, its human crew working together like a single organism. The second Korath ship tried to flee, turning to make a run for hyperspace, but the Resolute was faster. Another coordinated volley struck the enemy's engines, and another explosion lit up the darkness of space. The final Korath vessel broke and ran, abandoning its crippled allies without hesitation. It jumped to hyperspace and vanished, leaving behind 2 destroyed ships and the wreckage of a battle the slavers had expected to win easily. Silence fell over the bridge as the crew processed what had just happened. Lisa let out a breath she had not realized she was holding and looked around at her people. They were battered, exhausted, and some of them were bleeding from minor wounds sustained during the fighting. Damage report, she ordered. Daniel consulted his station. 17 crew members injured, 2 killed. Ensign Marcus Cole and Petty Officer Diana Webb. They died at their posts in forward weapons control. Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the weight of those names. 2 of her people were dead. 2 lives ended because she had chosen to protect strangers instead of running away. They died heroes, she said quietly. Make sure their families know that. Dr. Kevin appeared on the bridge, his uniform stained with blood. "Commander, the refugees are asking what happened. They heard the battle, and they are frightened." Lisa straightened her shoulders and forced the grief from her face. "Tell them the threat has been eliminated. They are safe now." Kevin nodded but did not leave immediately. "Those 2 crew members who died, Marcus and Diana, I knew them both. They had families back on Earth. Children." "I know," Lisa said. "And when we get home, I will personally inform those families of their sacrifice. But right now, we have wounded to treat and a ship to repair. Grief can wait. Our duty cannot." Kevin understood. He had served with Lisa long enough to know that she felt every loss as deeply as anyone, but she could not show it. Not now. Not while her crew needed her to be strong. The doctor returned to the medical bay, and Lisa turned back to the view screen. The stars shone cold and distant, indifferent to the battle that had just ended and the lives that had been lost. 2 humans had died today so that 47 strangers could live. It was not a fair exchange by any reasonable calculation. It made no logical sense, but it was the human way, and Lisa would not have it any other way. The planet called New Haven hung in the viewport like a blue and green jewel against the black velvet of space. Clouds swirled across its surface in patterns that reminded Telos of the homeworld he would never see again. The Resolute had traveled for 3 standard cycles to reach this human colony, and during that time, the refugees had experienced something they had never known before. They had experienced peace. The refugees gathered in the observation deck as the ship began its descent toward the planet's surface. They watched in wonder as the sky changed from black to deep blue to the soft pink of a sunrise. Land appeared below them, covered in forests and fields and small settlements that dotted the landscape like scattered seeds. Young, Cerise pressed her crystalline face against the window, her body glowing with health and vitality. Dr. Kevin had saved her life, spending countless hours monitoring her condition and adjusting her treatment until she was strong enough to walk again. Now she laughed with delight as colorful birds flew past the descending ship, creatures she had never seen before and never imagined could exist. "Is this really where we will live?" she asked Telos, her voice filled with hope. "Yes, little one. The humans have offered us sanctuary here. We can build new homes and start new lives." Kavros stood apart from the others, his forearms crossed over his chest as he watched the approaching ground. In the cycle since the battle, something had changed within the Dreth merchant. The suspicion that had defined his entire existence had begun to crack, revealing something softer underneath. He still did not fully understand the humans, but he could no longer deny what they had done for his people. 2 humans had died fighting the Korath. 2 lives ended protecting strangers they had never met before that day. Kavros had attended the memorial service held aboard the Resolute, standing among the human crew as they honored their fallen comrades. He had watched Commander Lisa speak about Ensign Marcus Cole and Petty Officer Diana Webb, telling stories of their lives and their dreams and the families they had left behind, that it had broken something inside him. Or perhaps it had fixed something that had been broken for a very long time. The ship landed gently on a wide field outside a small city. The refugees disembarked slowly, their legs unsteady after so many cycles in space. Human officials waited to greet them, smiling and waving and holding signs of welcome written in languages the translation software could barely process. A human woman approached Telos and introduced herself as Governor Hannah Reed of New Haven Colony. She was middle-aged with silver streaks in her dark hair and warm lines around her eyes that spoke of a life spent smiling. "Welcome to New Haven," she said. "We have prepared temporary housing for your people while we work out the details of permanent settlement. You will find food, clean water, and medical supplies waiting for you. If you need anything else, please do not hesitate to ask. Tellus studied her face, searching for the hidden price that must surely exist. Governor Reed, your people have already done so much for us. The crew of the Resolute saved our lives and fought off slavers to protect us. 2 of them died in that battle. We cannot accept more generosity without understanding what you expect in return. Hannah tilted her head slightly, a gesture that Tellus had come to recognize as a sign of confusion among humans. In return? Elder Tellus, we do not expect anything. You are refugees who have lost everything. Helping you rebuild your lives is simply the right thing to do. But why? Your species owes us nothing. We are strangers from distant worlds. Our survival offers you no benefit. Hannah was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Let me tell you something about humans, Elder. Our history is filled with darkness. We have committed terrible crimes against each other. Wars, genocide, oppression, cruelty that would make even the Korath seem mild by comparison. For thousands of years, we found new and creative ways to hurt one another. She paused and looked up at the sky, where distant stars were beginning to appear as evening approached. But we also learned. Slowly, painfully, we learned that the path of selfishness and hatred leads only to destruction. We learned that our survival as a species depends on our ability to care for one another. Not just our family or our tribe or our nation, but all of us. Every living being deserves dignity and compassion. And you extend this belief to other species as well? Of course. The universe is vast and filled with life. If we only cared about ourselves, what would be the point of reaching for the stars? We go out into space not to conquer or exploit, but to meet new friends and build new relationships. To help where we can and learn from others in return. Tellus felt something shift in his understanding, a fundamental change in how he perceived the universe and his place within it. For his entire life, he had believed that logic and calculation were the highest virtues. That survival required cold assessment of costs and benefits. That helping others without profit was foolishness. The humans had proven him wrong. Commander Lisa approached the group, having finished overseeing the unloading of supplies from the Resolute. She looked tired but satisfied, the weariness of someone who had completed a difficult task and done it well. Elder Tellus, I wanted to say goodbye before we depart. The Resolute has been assigned to patrol duty along the border sectors. We need to leave within the hour. Tellus reached out and took her hand, a gesture he had learned from watching human crew members. Commander Lisa Morgan, I do not have words sufficient to express my gratitude for what you and your crew have done. You saved us when everyone else abandoned us. You fought and bled and died for people you did not know. You have changed my understanding of what is possible in this universe. Lisa smiled, and there was warmth in it despite the exhaustion in her eyes. We did what anyone should do. The only difference is that we actually did it. That difference means everything, Tellus said. I have lived for 300 cycles. I have seen countless beings face choices between helping others and serving themselves. Almost without exception, they chose themselves. Your species is the first I have encountered that consistently chooses compassion. Yenna pushed through the crowd of refugees and threw herself at Lisa, wrapping her feathered arms around the human commander in an embrace. Thank you, the young Marathi said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for Pete and Kevin and Amy and Daniel and all the others. Thank you for showing us that the galaxy is not as cruel as we believed. Lisa hugged her back gently. The galaxy is exactly as cruel as we allow it to be. Every time someone chooses kindness over selfishness, the universe becomes a little brighter. Remember that, Yenna. You have the power to change things wherever you go. Even Kavros approached, his usual cynical expression softened into something that might have been respect. Commander, I owe you an apology. When you first came aboard the Kethran, I accused you of having hidden motives. I could not believe that anyone would help us without expecting payment. I was wrong. Lisa nodded. You were not wrong to be suspicious. The galaxy taught you to think that way through painful experience. But I hope we have taught you something different. You have. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand it. The Resolute's crew began boarding their shuttles, preparing to return to their ship and continue their mission. The refugees watched them go with a mixture of sadness and gratitude, knowing they would likely never see these humans again, but would never forget what they had done. As the shuttles lifted off and disappeared into the darkening sky, Telos turned to his people. Valorians, Dreth, and Marithi stood together, united by the experience they had shared. They were no longer strangers to each other. They were survivors. They were family. We have been given a second chance, Telos said, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. The humans saved us not because they had to, but because they believed it was right. They showed us that compassion is not weakness, that kindness is not foolishness, that helping others is the highest purpose any being can aspire to. He paused and looked up at the stars, where the lights of the Resolute were becoming visible as the ship prepared to jump to hyperspace. Let us honor their sacrifice by living according to their example. Let us build a community here that welcomes all who need help, regardless of species or origin. Let us be the change that the humans believe is possible. Cerise tugged at his arm, and Telos looked down at the young Valorian. Elder, do you think we will ever see the humans again? Telos smiled, a rare expression on his crystalline features. I believe we will, little one. The humans are expanding across the galaxy, and wherever they go, they bring their values with them. Someday, perhaps, their way of thinking will spread to other species as well. Imagine a galaxy where everyone helps those in need, where no one is left to die alone in the darkness. Yenna joined them, her feathers rustling in the evening breeze. That would be a beautiful galaxy. It would, Telos agreed. And thanks to the humans, I believe it is possible. Far above them, the USS Resolute jumped to hyperspace, its crew already preparing for their next mission. Commander Lisa stood on the bridge, looking at the stars that streaked past the view screen. She thought about the refugees they had saved and the crew members they had lost. She thought about the Karaf slavers who had fled in terror and the message that their defeat would send through